Every storage facility has rules, but Desert View Storage in Phoenix has one that doesn't appear in any employee manual. Never inspect Unit 47 during your rounds. I learned this the hard way on my 5th night, when I heard metal scraping against concrete from that corner of the facility. I approached Unit 47 with my flashlight and found scratch marks on the inside of the roll-up door. Fresh ones, made by something trying to get out. The concrete in front of the unit was cracked in a spiderweb pattern radiating from the door. When I reported it to my supervisor the next morning, he went pale and said, "That unit has been sealed since 1983. Nothing inside should still be alive. My name is Marcus Thompson, and I've been working night security at Desert View Storage for 3 weeks now. The job pays $22 an hour, which in Phoenix is enough to cover rent and have something left over. After 2 years of unemployment following a back injury at my construction job, I wasn't in a position to be picky. Night security seemed perfect. Minimal physical activity, decent pay, and most importantly, they were willing to hire someone with a gap in employment history. Desert View Storage sprawls across 40 acres of flat Arizona desert on the outskirts of Phoenix, where the city gives way to dusty lots and abandoned strip malls. It's one of those massive facilities with 1,847 individual units ranging from 5 by 5 closets to 20 by 30 spaces big enough to store RVs. The whole complex is surrounded by an 8-foot fence, topped with razor wire. More to keep out homeless camps than thieves, according to my supervisor, Dennis Kowalski. Dennis trained me for exactly 2 nights before declaring me ready for solo shifts. He was a thick-set man in his 50s who wheezed when he walked and seemed eager to hand over the night duties to someone else. "Job's simple," he'd said, showing me around the security office, a converted shipping container with air conditioning, monitors, and a desk. Drive the golf cart around every 2 hours, check for open units, vandalism, that sort of thing. Log anything unusual. Gates locked from midnight to 5 a.m., so nobody should be coming or going during your shift. "What about the customers with 24-hour access?" I'd asked. "We don't offer that anymore. Stopped in 2019. Too many problems with people living in their units." He'd paused then, looking at the bank of monitors, showing various corridors of storage units. "There's a list of rules in the desk drawer. Some are company policy. Some are, let's call them best practices developed over the years." That should have been my first warning. The list was laminated, yellowed with age, and clearly not official company documentation. Night shift rules, Desert View Storage 1. Complete rounds every 2 hours between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. 2. Do not investigate sounds from Unit 47-3. If you see lights in closed units, log it, but do not approach 4. The southwest corner floods during monsoon season. Avoid after rain 5. If you encounter anyone claiming to be an owner after midnight, call police immediately. 6. Unit 47 is off limits. No inspection, no maintenance, no exceptions. 7. Some motion sensors give false readings between 3 to 4 a.m. Ignore them. 8. If you smell something dead, call Dennis before investigating. Rules 2. And 6 stood out immediately. Why was Unit 47 mentioned twice, specifically? My first 4 nights were uneventful. The facility was eerily quiet, except for the occasional desert wind rattling the metal doors. I did my rounds, checked the perimeter, and spent most of the time in the air-conditioned office reading paperback novels or scrolling through my phone. The job seemed almost too easy. On the 5th night, the night I heard the scraping, everything changed. It was around 2 a.m., and I was halfway through my rounds. The golf cart's headlights cut through the darkness between the storage buildings, creating sharp shadows. That's when I heard it. A long, metallic scraping sound, like someone dragging a crowbar across concrete. The sound came from Building C, where the climate-controlled units were located. These were the expensive units, supposedly sealed and temperature-regulated for storing sensitive items. Unit 47 was in Building C. I parked the golf cart and approached on foot, flashlight in hand. The building was accessible through a coded door, which stood properly closed. I punched in the access code and stepped inside. The fluorescent lights flickered on automatically, revealing a long corridor of beige roll-up doors. The scraping sound had stopped, but I could hear something else now. A rhythmic thumping, like someone knocking from inside one of the units. The sound led me to Unit 47. The unit looked identical to all the others. 10 feet wide, 10 feet tall, secured with a heavy-duty padlock. But the concrete in front of it was wrong. Spider web cracks radiated out from the door's base, and when I shone my flashlight on the door itself, I saw them. Scratch marks on the inside of the roll-up door, visible through the small gap at the bottom. Fresh scratches in the metal, some deep enough to have gouged through the paint to bare steel. The thumping stopped the moment my flashlight beam hit the door. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, heart pounding, waiting for something else to happen. When nothing did, I backed away slowly and returned to the office. I logged the incident in the shift report and went back to my novel, trying to convince myself that the scratches could have been made during the day, that I simply hadn't noticed them before. When Dennis arrived at 6 a.m. to relieve me, I showed him the log entry. His face went from its usual ruddy pink to ash gray in seconds. "You went to Unit 47. He sat down heavily in the office chair. "I heard scraping. I thought someone might be breaking in. That unit has been sealed since 1983. Nothing inside should still be alive." He rubbed his face with both hands. "Christ, 40 years, and it's starting again. What's starting again?" Dennis looked at me for a long moment, seeming to weigh his options. Finally, he opened the bottom desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder thick with papers. "Sit down, Marcus. If you're going to keep working here, you need to know the history." The folder contained newspaper clippings, incident reports, and photographs dating back to 1983. The first clipping was from the Phoenix Sun-Tribune, dated March 15, 1983. "Local family missing after storage unit dispute." The article described how Margaret Holbrook, 42, had disappeared along with her 2 teenage children following a dispute with her estranged husband over belongings kept in a storage unit. The husband, Raymond Holbrook, was initially suspected, but had an alibi. The family was never found. "That's the official story," Dennis said. What actually happened was worse. He pulled out a police report dated 3 days after the newspaper article. It described how blood had been found in Unit 47, which Margaret Holbrook had rented. Not enough blood to indicate death, but enough to suggest violence. The unit had contained furniture, boxes of clothes, photo albums, normal storage items, plus something else. "They found symbols painted on the walls," Dennis said. "Weird stuff that the cops couldn't identify. The FBI got involved briefly, thought it might be cult-related, but they couldn't make sense of it either." He showed me a photocopy of one of the symbols. It looked like a circle with radiating lines, almost like a child's drawing of the sun, but with smaller circles at the end of each line, each containing a different symbol. Margaret's body was never found, but her kids. Dennis paused, taking a drink from his coffee mug with shaking hands. "The older kid, Jennifer, she was 16. They found her 3 months later, wandering in the desert, dehydrated, speaking gibberish. She died in the hospital without ever making sense. The younger one, Bobby, he was 14. Never found him at all. So who's been paying for the unit? That's the thing. The payments come from a trust Margaret set up before she disappeared. 40 years of payments, never missed. The trust supposedly runs out in 2049. I looked at the payment records Dennis showed me. Every month, exactly $89, paid on the first like clockwork. Why $89? The climate-controlled units cost 3 times that now. Grandfather clause in the contract. As long as the payments continue without interruption, the rate stays the same. We've tried to break the lease, but the legal department says it's ironclad. So we just leave it alone. That was the plan. Until 1987. He pulled out another incident report. A security guard named Tom Yates had reported hearing voices from Unit 47. He'd opened it to investigate. The report was incomplete, ending mid-sentence. A handwritten note was clipped to it. Yates, T, terminated for abandonment of post. Forward final check to Phoenix State Hospital, Ward 7. Tom's still alive, Dennis said quietly. Still in psychiatric care. Hasn't spoken a coherent sentence since that night. Just repeats numbers over and over. 47, 89, 2049. There were more incidents. 1992. A maintenance worker named Carlos Vega ignored the warnings and tried to fix the climate control system in Building C. He was found the next morning standing in front of Unit 47, staring at the door. He claimed he could hear his dead mother calling from inside. He quit that day. 1998. 2 teenagers broke into the facility and tried to jimmy the lock on Unit 47. One was found dead from what the coroner called sudden cardiac arrest, despite being 17 and healthy. The other was found 3 days later in his bedroom, having scratched symbols into his arms that matched the ones found in the unit. He survived but required extensive psychiatric treatment. 2005. A new manager decided to do a full inventory of all units. She insisted on opening Unit 47, despite warnings from longtime employees. She got the door up about 6 inches before the power to the entire facility failed. When the lights came back on, she was unconscious. She woke up 3 days later with no memory of the previous 6 months. 2014. During the Phoenix earthquake, magnitude 4.1, Unit 47's door was damaged. A night security guard reported seeing multiple figures inside the unit through the gap. When police investigated the next morning, the unit appeared to contain only furniture and boxes, exactly as it had in 1983. And now, Dennis said, closing the folder, we have fresh scratches on the inside of the door. What do you think is really in there? Dennis was quiet for a long moment. I've worked here 15 years. I've heard things, seen things that don't make sense. My personal theory, Margaret Holbrook did something in that unit. Some kind of ritual, maybe. And whatever she did, she's still in there, along with anyone else who's been stupid enough to look inside. But you said she set up the trust before she disappeared. Like she planned it. Yeah, that's the part that keeps me up at night. She knew she'd need that unit for at least 66 years. What takes 66 years to complete? I didn't have an answer for that. Dennis stood up to leave, then paused. Look, Marcus, I'm going to be straight with you. We've gone through 7 night guards in the last 2 years. Most quit after a few weeks. The ones who last longer, well, they start to change. Start talking about hearing things, seeing things. If you want to transfer to day shift, I'll make it happen. Less pay, but maybe worth it for your sanity. I thought about my empty bank account, my overdue rent, the stack of medical bills from my back surgery. I'll stick with nights for now. Dennis nodded. Your choice, but follow the rules, especially about Unit 47. And Marcus, if things get weirder tonight, you call me immediately. Don't try to handle it yourself. After Dennis left, I sat in the office thinking about what I'd learned. A family disappears. A storage unit that's been paid for 4 decades. Unexplained incidents every few years. It sounded like something out of a horror novel, not real life in Phoenix. But those scratches were real, fresh, made from the inside. That night I came in for my shift with a different attitude. This wasn't just a security job anymore. It was something else, something that required vigilance and strict adherence to rules I didn't fully understand. I started my first round at 10 p.m., driving the golf cart through the maze of storage buildings. The Arizona night was cooler than the blazing days, but still warm enough that I was sweating by the time I reached Building C. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked about 50 feet away and watched. The building sat silent and dark, its metal siding occasionally creaking as it cooled from the day's heat. At 11:47 p.m., the motion sensor for Building C triggered. I watched the monitor in the office as the alert flashed red. The camera showed the corridor inside Building C, fluorescent lights automatically flickering on. Empty. No movement visible. But motion sensors don't trigger themselves. I made a note in the log and continued watching. The lights stayed on for their programmed 5 minutes, then clicked off. The corridor returned to darkness. At 1:15 a.m., I did my second round, again avoiding Building C. Everything else was normal. A few units with suspicious locks that I noted for day shift to check. Some minor graffiti on Building F. A family of javelinas rooting around near the dumpsters. At 2:33 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed Dennis. Marcus, you okay? His voice was tense. Yeah, why? I just got an automated alert. The temperature in Building C dropped 20 degrees in the last 10 minutes. I looked at the climate control panel in the office. Building C was supposed to maintain a steady 72 degrees. It now read 52 and falling. System malfunction, I asked hopefully. Maybe. But Marcus, this happened in 2014 too, right before the earthquake. Should I check it out? No. Absolutely not. If the temperature keeps dropping, call me back. But do not go into Building C. The line went dead. I watched the temperature gauge. 51, 50, 49. At 47 degrees, it stopped. I stared at the number. 47, like the unit number. Then the power went out. The emergency lighting kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing the office in a red glow. The monitors were dead, the air conditioning silent. In the sudden quiet, I could hear something I'd never noticed before. A humming sound, low and constant, coming from the direction of Building C. I grabbed my flashlight and radio, then remembered Dennis's warning. Do not go into Building C. But my job was to investigate problems. If I just sat in the office every time something strange happened, what was the point of having security? I compromised. I'd check the exterior of Building C, but I wouldn't go inside. The desert night felt different during a power outage. Without the facility's security lights, the darkness was absolute, except for the stars overhead and the distant glow of Phoenix on the horizon. My flashlight beam seemed pathetically small against the vastness of the dark. Building C stood like a metal monolith against the star field. As I approached, I noticed something odd. Condensation on the metal siding. In the Arizona desert, where humidity rarely climbed above 20%, the building was sweating like a cold beer on a hot day. I touched the metal wall and jerked my hand back. It was ice cold, painful to touch, like touching dry ice. The building's exterior was at least 30 degrees colder than the ambient air temperature. The humming sound was louder here, seeming to come from inside the building. It had a rhythm to it, almost like breathing. A long, low note followed by silence, then repeating. I walked around to the access door. Through the small window, I could see the emergency lighting had activated inside, casting everything in that same hellish red glow. The corridor looked empty, but the angle prevented me from seeing Unit 47. My radio crackled to life, making me jump. "Marcus," Dennis's voice, but strange, distorted. "Don't. Inside. Dangerous. Dennis, you're breaking up. Get away. Building C. Now." The transmission cut to static. I started backing away from the building when I heard it, a voice, muffled but distinct, coming from inside Building C. "Help me." A woman's voice, desperate, frightened. "Please, someone help me. I'm trapped." Every instinct told me to run back to the office, lock the door, and wait for morning. But what if someone was genuinely trapped? What if a customer had somehow gotten locked in when the power failed? I keyed my radio. "This is Marcus at Building C. I'm hearing someone calling for help from inside. Please advise. Static. Dennis, do you copy?" "Nothing." The voice came again, clearer this time. "Please. The door won't open. It's so cold, I had to make a decision. Rules and warnings aside, if someone was truly in danger and I did nothing..." I punched in the access code. The electronic lock was dead, but the mechanical override worked. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss. The cold hit me like a physical force. My breath clouded in front of me as I stepped inside. The emergency lights cast long red shadows down the corridor. The humming was louder here, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Hello?" I called out. "Security! Where are you?" "Here. Unit 47. Please." My blood went cold. Unit 47. I should have turned around right then, should have run. But the voice sounded so real, so terrified. I walked down the corridor, my footsteps echoing off the metal doors. The temperature continued to drop with each step closer to Unit 47. By the time I reached it, I could see ice crystals forming on the walls. The padlock on Unit 47 hung open, not broken, not cut, simply open, as if someone had unlocked it and forgotten to close it properly. "Hello?" I called again. "In here. Please, I can't get out." The voice was definitely coming from inside the unit. Against every warning, every instinct, every rule I'd been given, I grabbed the bottom of the roll-up door. It lifted easily, too easily, as if it wanted to open. The first thing I saw was furniture. Old furniture from the 1980s, covered in dust and ice crystals. A floral print couch, a wooden dining table, boxes stacked along the walls. Normal storage unit contents. Then my flashlight beam found the back wall. The symbols Dennis had shown me were there, painted in something dark that might have been blood, might have been paint, might have been something else entirely. They seemed to move in the flashlight beam, writhing and shifting when I wasn't looking directly at them. In the center of the unit stood a woman. She was middle-aged, wearing clothes that looked 40 years out of date. High-waisted jeans, a burgundy blouse with shoulder pads, her hair in a style I'd only seen in old photos. She was facing away from me, standing perfectly still. "Ma'am, are you all right?" She turned around slowly, and I understood why Dennis had gone pale that morning. It was Margaret Holbrook. I recognized her from the newspaper photos in the file, 40 years older, but unmistakably her. Same face, same hair color, even the same mole on her left cheek. But her eyes were wrong. They were solid black, no whites, no iris, just black orbs that reflected my flashlight like mirrors. "Thank you for coming," she said, and her voice was different now, older, raspier, like she'd been screaming for decades. "I've been waiting so long for someone to finally open the door properly." I took a step back. "You're Margaret Holbrook. You disappeared in 1983. She smiled, and her teeth were too sharp, too many. "Disappeared? No, Marcus. I've been right here, waiting, preparing. Preparing what? For the door to open. For someone to let me finish what I started." She gestured at the symbols on the wall. 40 years of preparation. 40 years of gathering strength. And now, thanks to you, I can complete the ritual. I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut behind me. The metal rang like a bell. "You're going to help me, Marcus," Margaret said, taking a step forward. With each step, she seemed to flicker, like a TV with bad reception. One moment she was the woman from 1983. The next, she was something else. Something with too many limbs, too many teeth. Something that hurt to look at directly. "Your supervisor, Dennis, was almost right," she continued. "I did perform a ritual here in 1983. But not to trap myself. To become something more. The 66 years isn't random. It's the time needed for the transformation to complete, for the boundary between worlds to weaken enough. What happened to your children?" Her face twisted into something that might have been sadness. "Jennifer tried to stop me. She didn't understand the glory of what I was becoming. Bobby, sweet Bobby, understood. He's here with me. Would you like to meet him?" From behind the stacked boxes came movement. A figure emerged. A teenage boy, or what had once been a teenage boy. Like his mother, he flickered between human and something else. His mouth opened, and the sound that came out was the same humming I'd been hearing all night. "We've been feeding," Margaret said. "Every person who's looked inside over the years, we take a piece of them. Not enough to kill, usually, just enough to sustain us, to grow stronger. But now, with the 66 years almost complete, we need more." "The trust fund," I said, trying to keep her talking while I felt behind me for the door handle. "It runs until 2049. October 31st, 2049, she confirmed. 66 years, 6 months, and 6 days from when I began. The perfect time frame for transformation. But I'm so hungry, Marcus. We're so hungry, and you've been so kind to finally let us out." The door handle wouldn't budge. The metal was so cold it burned my hand. "You can't leave," Margaret said. "The unit is sealed now. From the inside, just like before. But this time, I'm ready. This time, I know what I'm doing." She reached out toward me, her arm extending far longer than any human arm should, fingers stretching like taffy. I dodged to the side, pressing myself against the boxes. "Dennis knows I'm here," I said. "He'll send help." Margaret laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Dennis is practical. He won't risk more guards. He'll wait until morning, maybe call the police. By then, it will be too late. You'll be part of us, and we'll be strong enough to leave this unit." Bobby moved to block the door, his form more stable than his mother's, but still wrong, still flickering between human and monster. "You see," Margaret continued, "we can't leave on our own. The ritual binds us here until it's complete. But with each person who enters, we can take a little more. And with you, Marcus, we'll have enough to manifest outside. To spread. Spread where? Everywhere. This storage facility is just the beginning. Every storage unit, every forgotten space, every abandoned corner of the city can become a doorway. We'll make more like us. Transform others who are ready to become more than human. I thought about the scratches on the inside of the door. You've been trying to get out. Trying to get someone's attention, she corrected. To make someone curious enough to break the rules. And you did. Thank you for that. She lunged at me, moving faster than anything human could move. I dove behind the couch, feeling her fingers rake across my back, tearing through my shirt. The pain was immediate and strange. Not just physical, but something deeper, like she was pulling at something inside me. I rolled away, knocking over boxes. Their contents spilled out. Photo albums, children's toys, Christmas decorations, normal family items made grotesque by the context. Bobby moved to corner me, his humming growing louder. This close, I could see that his eyes were like his mother's. Solid black, reflecting nothing but darkness. It won't hurt for long, Margaret said. The transformation is painful at first, but then you'll understand. You'll see what we see. The walls between worlds, how thin they really are. How easy it is to punch through them. I grabbed a metal Christmas tree stand from one of the spilled boxes and swung it at Bobby. It passed right through him like he was made of smoke. He smiled with too many teeth and reached for me. His touch was agony. Not cold, not hot, but something else. Like every cell in my body was being pulled apart and put back together wrong. I screamed and jerked away, stumbling over more boxes. That's when I noticed something. The symbols on the wall, they were glowing now, pulsing with a dim red light. But one of them was different, newer looking, painted over the original. And it was flickering, unstable. Jennifer tried to stop you, I said, understanding hitting me. She changed one of the symbols. That's why you can't leave. The ritual is incomplete. Margaret's face contorted with rage. She ruined everything, 66 years of preparation, and she destroyed it with one small change. But we adapted. We learned. We found another way. By feeding on people. By becoming something better. We don't need the original ritual anymore. We just need enough energy, enough life force, and you're going to give us the last piece we need. She came at me again, and this time I had nowhere to run. Her hands closed around my throat, and I felt that terrible pulling sensation again, stronger this time. She was taking something from me. Not my breath, but something more fundamental. My vision started to darken, not from lack of oxygen, but because she was pulling the light out of me. The warmth, the spark that made me alive. In desperation, I grabbed the can of spray paint from my belt, the one I carried for marking vandalism. I sprayed it directly at the altered symbol on the wall. The effect was immediate. The symbol flared with brilliant white light, and Margaret screamed, a sound that shattered the ice on the walls and made my ears bleed. She released me, stumbling backward, her form flickering wildly between human and monster. No! You don't know what you're doing. I kept spraying, covering the symbol completely. With each pass, Margaret and Bobby grew less solid, less real. They were fading, becoming translucent. 66 years, Margaret wailed. 66 years of waiting. The original symbols on the wall began to glow brighter, as if responding to the destruction of the altered one. The temperature in the unit began to rise rapidly. The ice melted, running down the walls in rivulets. Bobby reached for his mother, and for a moment, he looked entirely human, just a scared 14-year-old boy. "Mom," he said, his voice normal, terrified. "Mom, what did you do to us?" Margaret's face crumbled. "I was trying to save us, to make us more than what we were. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." They embraced, and as they did, they continued to fade. The symbols on the walls began to burn, the paint, or blood, or whatever it was, combusting spontaneously. "Run," Margaret said to me, her voice barely a whisper. "Run before it all comes undone." The roll-up door burst open, the lock shattering. I didn't need to be told twice. I ran. Behind me, I heard a sound like reality tearing, a boom that shook the entire facility, followed by a rushing sound like air being sucked into a vacuum. I made it 20 feet before the explosion knocked me flat. When I came to, I was lying on asphalt 20 feet from Building C. My ears were ringing, and every part of my body ached like I'd been thrown through a wood chipper. The first thing I noticed was the warmth. The desert night had returned to its normal temperature, that oppressive heat that never quite goes away, even after sunset. The second thing I noticed was Dennis kneeling beside me, his face pale in the flickering emergency lights. Jesus Christ, Marcus, what did you do? I tried to sit up, but the world spun violently. Unit 47. Margaret Holbrook. She was inside. You opened it. Dennis's voice cracked. You actually opened it. The door was already open. She was calling for help. I thought, you thought wrong. He helped me to a sitting position. The whole building's compromised. Look. Building C, the metal siding was buckled and warped, like something had exploded from the inside. Several of the roll-up doors hung at odd angles, but Unit 47, simply gone. Where it should have been, there was a perfect rectangular hole in the building, edges so clean it looked like someone had used a cosmic cookie cutter to remove that specific section of reality. The good news, Dennis said, is that the temperature readings are normal again. The bad news is that we have no idea what you let out. I didn't let anything out. I stopped them. Margaret and her son, they were trying to complete some ritual, trying to transform into something else. I disrupted it. Dennis stared at me. Them. Plural. I told him everything. Margaret's transformation, Bobby's presence, the altered symbol, the spray paint, the explosion. Dennis listened without interrupting, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. 40 years, he muttered when I finished. She was in there for 40 years, feeding on anyone who looked inside. He pulled out his phone. I need to make some calls. Can you stand? I could, barely. My legs felt like jelly, but they held my weight. Go to the office, Dennis said. Lock yourself in. Don't come out until I get back, no matter what you hear or see. Where are you going? To get help. Real help. There are people who deal with this kind of thing. What kind of people? The kind who know why Phoenix has so many storage facilities and why some of them have special rules. He was already walking toward his truck. Lock the office, Marcus. I mean it. I made it to the office on unsteady legs. The power was still out. Emergency lighting casting everything in that hellish red glow. I locked the door, barricaded it with the desk for good measure, and collapsed into the chair. My shirt was shredded where Margaret had raked her fingers across my back. When I examined the wounds in my phone's camera, they weren't scratches. They were strange marks, almost like burns, forming a pattern that hurt to look at directly. They throbbed with each heartbeat, sending waves of cold through my body despite the warm night. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I knew, someone was knocking on the office door. The emergency lights had been replaced by normal fluorescence. The power was back on. My phone showed 4:47 a.m. Marcus? It's Dennis. I've got someone with me. I moved the desk and unlocked the door. Dennis entered, followed by a woman I'd never seen before. She was probably 60, Native American, wearing jeans and a Phoenix Suns t-shirt that had seen better days. She carried a leather satchel that looked older than the storage facility itself. This is Maria Yazzie, Dennis said. She's a consultant. Maria studied me with dark eyes that seemed to see more than they should. You touched them. The ones in the unit. They touched me, I corrected, showing her my back. She hissed through her teeth. Marking wounds. They were trying to claim you. She opened her satchel and pulled out a jar of something that looked like motor oil mixed with sand. This will hurt, but it'll prevent the marks from taking root, becoming permanent, becoming a doorway they can use to return. She applied the mixture to my back, and she was right. It hurt like hell. Felt like she was grinding salt and glass into the wounds. But as the pain peaked, something else left me. A cold presence I hadn't fully realized was there, like icy fingers reluctantly releasing their grip on my spine. "Better," Maria said, stepping back. "Now tell me exactly what happened." I went through the story again. Maria listened without expression, occasionally nodding or asking for clarification. When I finished, she and Dennis exchanged a long look. "It's starting again," Maria said. "Starting?" I asked. "Every 20 to 30 years, someone tries to use the storage units for this purpose," Maria explained. "Phoenix sits on what my grandmother called a thin place, where the boundary between worlds is weaker. Storage units are perfect for long-term rituals. They're forgotten spaces, rarely disturbed, climate-controlled. People pay for them and then forget about them for years. So Margaret wasn't the first, not even close. In 1961, there was a man in a storage facility in Scottsdale trying to summon something. 1934, a woman in a warehouse downtown. 1908, a group of prospectors in a mine shaft they'd converted to storage. It goes back further, before written records. But why here specifically? Maria pulled out a map of Phoenix and spread it on the desk. She'd marked various locations with red X's, all storage facilities. "Look at the pattern," she said. The marks formed a rough circle around the city, with Desert View storage as one of the points. "It's a binding circle," Maria explained. "Each failed ritual leaves a weak point. Enough weak points, and something bigger can push through. Margaret Holbrook almost succeeded in creating another one. But I stopped her. You disrupted her. But did you stop her?" Maria looked at Dennis. "Show him." Dennis pulled up security footage on his phone from the last hour. The timestamp showed 3:33 a.m. The camera showed the exterior of Building C, that perfect rectangular hole where Unit 47 had been. As we watched, something moved in the darkness beyond the hole. Not quite visible, but a distortion, like heat shimmer off hot asphalt. It drifted out of the hole, paused as if getting its bearings, then moved off camera. "That was 20 minutes ago," Dennis said. "We've had 3 more since then." "3 more what?" "Entities, echoes, fragments, whatever you want to call them." Maria packed her supplies. "When you disrupted the ritual, you didn't destroy Margaret and Bobby. You scattered them. Pieces of them are now loose in the facility." As if on cue, an alarm triggered. The monitor showed Building F, where motion sensors had activated. The camera revealed nothing but an empty corridor, but the sensors kept triggering in sequence, as if something invisible was walking down the hall. "They're looking for hosts," Maria said. "People to complete what they started. That's why they marked you. You're already partially connected to them. So what do? We need to contain them before they leave the facility, if they get out into Phoenix proper." Maria shook her head. "A city with 4 million people. They could hide forever, growing stronger, spreading their influence." Dennis checked his watch. "Sun's up in an hour. We've got maybe a dozen customers showing up for early access, starting at 6 a.m. "Close the facility," I said. "Can't. Corporate would need to approve that, and they don't believe in this kind of thing. Best I can do is delay opening until 7. Maria stood. "Then we have 2 hours to find and contain 4 fragments of a 40-year-old ritual entity. We'll need salt, iron filings, and every can of spray paint you have." "Spray paint? You disrupted the ritual with paint, right?" It created a symbolic break in the pattern. We can use the same principle to trap them. We raided the maintenance supplies, 6 cans of spray paint, a bag of rock salt from the ice machine, and a bucket of iron filings from the workshop. Maria mixed the salt and iron in a specific ratio, muttering in what I assumed was Navajo. "The plan is simple," she said. "We create a new binding circle, but this time we're trapping them, not summoning them. Each fragment will be drawn to places of significance, locations where strong emotions were experienced." "Like where?" Dennis asked. "The office where guards quit. The spot where the teenagers broke in. Anywhere someone encountered Unit 47's influence and felt terror." She drew a rough map of the facility, marking specific locations. "We need to create a symbol at each of these points, then connect them. When the circle is complete, anything supernatural within it will be contained. And then we perform a proper banishment, send them where they should have gone 40 years ago." We split up. Dennis took buildings A through C, I took D through F, and Maria handled the perimeter. Each of us carried spray paint and the salt iron mixture. My first stop was the spot where the teenagers had broken in back in 1998. To the file, it was near Building E, Unit 12. The area felt different from the rest of the facility. Colder, despite the warming dawn air. The concrete showed old stains that might have been blood. I sprayed the symbol Maria had shown me. A circle with 4 lines radiating out, each ending in a smaller circle. As I completed it, the air shimmered, and I heard something that sounded like Margaret's voice, distant and distorted. "You can't stop us. We're already spreading." I ignored it and moved to the next location. The second spot was where Carlos Vega had encountered his dead mother's voice, Building D, near the loading dock. As I sprayed the symbol, I felt those cold fingers on my spine again, trying to pull me backward. The marks on my back burned, but Maria's treatment held. The fingers couldn't get purchase. The third location was trickier. It was inside Building F, where the motion sensors were still going crazy. I entered carefully, spray paint in one hand, salt mixture in the other. The corridor was empty, but I could feel a presence. The air was thick, hard to breathe, like trying to inhale soup. Halfway down the corridor, near Unit 31, the feeling intensified. This was where the manager had been found unconscious in 2005. As I started spraying the symbol, something rushed at me. Invisible but tangible. A cold wind with malevolent intent. It slammed into me, trying to knock the spray paint from my hand. I held on, completing the symbol even as invisible hands clawed at my face. The moment the symbol was complete, the pressure released. The presence retreated, hissing like steam from a burst pipe. My radio crackled. "Marcus, we've got a problem." Dennis's voice panicked. "There's a customer at the gate. Demanding early access. Says he's been paying for a unit here. It's only 5:30. We don't open until... He says his name is Bobby Holbrook." My blood went cold. "That's impossible. Bobby's been dead for 40 years. Tell that to the teenager standing at my gate." I ran back to the office. Dennis was there, watching the gate camera. A figure stood at the keypad, repeatedly entering numbers. He looked exactly as Bobby had in the unit. 14 years old, dated clothes, but solid, real, not flickering or transparent. "He's been typing the same numbers over and over," Dennis said. 47-89-2049. Unit number, monthly payment, year the trust expires. Maria arrived, breathing hard from running. She took one look at the monitor and swore in Navajo. "He's not a fragment," she said. "He's something else. When you disrupted the ritual, you didn't just scatter them. You gave him a way out. Out of what? Out of Mother turned him into. He's trying to become human again, but he needs an anchor. something to ground him in reality. The storage unit. No, you. She pointed at my back. Those marks. He's connected to you now. He can use that connection to pull himself fully into our world. The intercom buzzed. Bobby's voice, young and desperate. Please let me in. I need to get to my unit. Mom's waiting for me. His mother is scattered, I said. He doesn't know that. In his mind, he's still in 1983. Still 14. Still following his mother's plan. Maria grabbed more spray paint. We need to complete the binding circle before he figures out how to get in. But even as she spoke, the gate began to open. Not the normal mechanical opening. It was dissolving, metal turning to rust and flaking away. Bobby walked through the growing hole, his form solidifying with each step. He's using the connection, Maria said, drawing power from the marks on your back. I could feel it, a pulling sensation, like he was unraveling something inside me to weave himself into reality. With each step he took, I felt weaker, less substantial. How do we stop him? Complete the circle. Now. We ran. Dennis and Maria sprayed symbols at the designated points while I stumbled along, growing weaker by the moment. Bobby followed, not running, but walking with purpose, leaving footprints that cracked the asphalt. Mom, he called out. Where are you? I did what you said. I waited. I was patient. Maria completed another symbol. 3 more. We need 3 more. I could barely stand now. Bobby was maybe 50 feet away, close enough that I could see his eyes. Not solid black anymore, but brown, human, confused. You, he said, looking at me. You have her mark. Where is she? She's gone, Bobby. The ritual failed, his face contorted with grief and rage. No, she promised. She said we'd be together forever. She said we'd become gods. She was wrong. Liar. His voice shook the buildings. Windows cracked. She's here. I can feel her. She's in you. He was right, I realized. When Margaret had touched me, she'd left more than marks. She'd left a piece of herself, trying to claim me. And now Bobby was drawing on that piece, pulling it out of me to rebuild his mother. 1 more symbol, Maria shouted. Just 1 more. Dennis was at the final point, spray painting frantically, but Bobby was faster. He lunged at me, his hands closing on my throat. The moment he touched me, I saw everything. I saw Margaret 40 years ago, drawing the symbols with her own blood, speaking words in a language that predated human speech. I saw her children arrive at the storage unit, saw Jennifer try to stop her, saw Bobby choose to join her. I saw the transformation begin, reality warping around them, turning them into something that should not exist. I saw 40 years of waiting in that unit, time moving differently inside, decades passing in what felt like moments. I saw every person who'd looked inside, each one feeding them, giving them strength. And I saw Margaret's plan, not just to transform herself and Bobby, but to transform everyone, to break down the barriers between worlds and let something ancient and hungry come through. She failed, I gasped. Jennifer stopped her. Bobby's grip loosened. Jennifer, your sister. She changed the symbol. She saved everyone. Jennifer's dead. Mom said she was weak. Jennifer's free. She escaped. Your mother lied. For a moment, Bobby looked entirely human. Young, confused, lost. Then Dennis completed the final symbol. The binding circle snapped into place with an audible crack. Every symbol we'd painted flared with white light, connecting to form a perfect circle encompassing the entire facility. Bobby screamed, his form wavering, becoming transparent. No! I just wanted to come back. I just wanted to be normal again. Maria stepped forward, speaking in Navajo, then English. You can't come back, Bobby. You chose your path 40 years ago. But you can move forward. You can let go. I don't know how. Yes, you do. Your sister showed you. She let go. She moved on. Bobby looked at me, tears streaming down his translucent face. Tell her I'm sorry. If you ever find Jennifer, tell her I'm sorry I chose Mom. I will. He smiled, looking like the 14-year-old he'd been before everything went wrong. Then he faded, not violently like in the unit, but gently, like morning mist touched by sunlight. The marks on my back faded with him, leaving only normal scratches. Maria lowered her hands. It's done. The fragments are contained, and Bobby's moved on. What about Margaret? Scattered too thin to reform. She'll dissipate eventually, become nothing more than a bad feeling in dark corners. Dennis's phone rang. Corporate. Wondering why the facility wasn't open yet. I should take this, he said. Marcus, take the rest of the week off. Paid. You've earned it. As the sun rose fully, bathing Desert View storage in golden light, I realized something. Unit 47 was gone, but the stories would continue. Other units, other facilities, other people trying to break through from the other side. Will this happen again? I asked Maria as she packed her satchel. Probably. Phoenix is what it is. The thin places don't go away just because we stop one incident. So what do? We watch. We maintain the barriers. We help the ones we can and stop the ones we must. She handed me a business card. It was blank except for a phone number. Call if you see anything else unusual. And Marcus, thank you. Most people would have run. I almost did. But you didn't. That matters. As Maria drove away and Dennis argued with corporate about emergency maintenance, I stood in the morning sun, looking at the hole where Unit 47 had been. Already I could see Dennis had put up barriers, yellow tape, warning signs. By tomorrow there'd be a work crew here to repair the damage. By next week, it would be like nothing had happened. But I'd know. I'd always know that beneath the mundane surface of the city, things waited in forgotten spaces, patient and hungry, looking for a way through. I came back to work the next week. Dennis had moved me to day shift, better hours, same pay as night. He never said it was hazard pay, but we both knew it was. The hole in Building C had been repaired. The space where Unit 47 had been was now just a wall. Corporate had written off the incident as a gas leak explosion. The customers who'd had units in Building C were relocated or refunded. Nobody asked too many questions. But I kept Maria's card in my wallet, and I paid attention. 3 weeks later, a customer complained about strange noises from Unit 892. The account had been paid up for 15 years by an automatic payment from a bank that had gone defunct in 2008. I called Maria. Don't open it, she said. I'll be right there. This is my job now. Not just security, but something more. Guardian, maybe. Watcher. The person who stands between the normal world and the things that try to push through from outside. Dennis is training me, teaching me the real history of Phoenix's storage facilities. Maria stops by once a week, showing me symbols, teaching me to recognize the signs. There's a whole network of us, apparently. People who know about the thin places, who work to keep them sealed. Unit 47 is gone, but there are others. Unit 892, Unit 1346. Storage facilities across the city, each with their own stories, their own rules, their own dangers, and somewhere out there, scattered too thin to see but still present, Margaret Holbrook drifts through the dark corners of Phoenix, looking for a way to reform, to complete what she started. But we're watching, we're ready, and we have spray paint. The storage facility runs 24/7. Someone's always on duty, always watching, because in cities like Phoenix, built on thin places where the boundaries are weak. Someone has to maintain the barriers. Someone has to enforce the rules. Even the strange ones. Especially the strange ones.